Hi everyone, it's Becky here. So welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. And today I am visiting the inside of this cathedral, Mary Queen of the World Cathedral in downtown Montreal. And here I'm just walking in. And today I would like to challenge myself to sketch the interior of this cathedral. And I think it's my first time sketching a cathedral. I think I've sketched a church interior before, which is a little easier than this. But right now, as you can see, there's so many domes and chambers in here, and a lot of religious ornaments in here. Lots of murals on the walls, around the ceilings. So yeah, it's a challenge. Let's see how it will work out. So because the interior structure layout is a little complicated, so I just use a pencil to do a very quick guideline for myself, so I'm not drawing way too big or too small. So I'm beginning with the dome area. Yeah, for this area, I can see that it's very much like a large inside of an eggshell. Okay, it's kind of like an inverted sphere, and there's so many lines like this wrapping around the inner three dimension of the sphere, and lots of repeating details like these square shapes. So I actually cut a lot of these, like the drawing process off, because it's not necessary for you to see all of the details that I drew. Because I don't want you to fall asleep watching the whole drawing process, because there's like so many repetitions of simple geometric shapes like these little tiny little rectangles. Yeah, just kind of building this up layer by layer. So as you can see, I used the pencil to divide this part of the cathedral interior into just a few manageable large shapes. And one of the large shapes is this dome area, which is a circle. And inside the circle is very similar to like the inside of a mandala. All you need is the patience to see the combination of shapes and just adding them on. Take your time and be patient. The only challenge about this is not the difficulty of drawing, but is very testing our patience to draw the inside of a cathedral. And now to drawing these columns. In between these columns, I see windows. Yeah, just kind of like, keep going with my focus, with the flow. Of course, there are actually thousands of details in this interior. I'm just capturing, the parts that really I recognize when I see something. Okay, so these are windows, and I know that they are essential, and so I just include them in the drawing, and adding the window frames for each window. Yeah, so the dome area is done. I'm moving on to the next large shape, which is one of the large columns supporting the dome, and dividing this interior into several large chambers. So again, as you can see, I'm drawing these medium shapes like round triangles, these image frames, and inside we have religious imageries of angels and Jesus. We're gonna do that later. So I just kind of like drawing this smaller dome area. So when drawing pretty much everything from simple everyday still life objects to this super complicated interior, it's very important to get the largest structures done before moving on to the details. So right now I'm just kind of trying to lay out these large structures, the supporting columns. Yeah, and keep adding some medium shapes like this window here. It's like an inverted prism, and inside we have a window, adding a little bit hatching to give it a bit of 3 dimension. So this area is very much like an part of an inverted sphere as well, very round. I'm using these lines, and then in between we have repetition again. These rectangles filled with patterns inside. So getting these shapes done, and they don't look all the same because they're laying on a curved surface. So there's a little bit of a distortion in terms of sizes, and just using very quick lines to draw the pattern inside each little rectangle. Okay, and now I'm filling in these shapes with the religious figures that I see, the angels and Jesus and other saints inside these circles and triangles underneath the dome area. So again, I'm drawing actually very quickly. Just try my best to get these figures done and move on. I know it won't look exactly the same as that beautiful mural in that area. And keep drawing this one. This is probably like an angel. And move on to this middle area, the atrium of the cathedral, and some more of these shapes filled with religious images and figures. Yeah, and just drawing these figures very quickly, trying my best. It's actually a little challenging to draw uh, figures inside these small shapes. And I just move on to the next little dome area, another chamber or corridor, and another medium shape. And to show the size of this grand interior, I decided to add this man praying with the chanting music here. So right now it's around 5 in the evening, and I think it's praying hour. Yeah, so drawing his head and the neck area, the collar, and his body area. Yeah, I think I captured his gesture pretty well. And keep adding these layers of rings around the atrium. And here I'm starting to draw this central sculpture in the very middle of the atrium of the cathedral. It starts with a cross, and underneath the cross I see several figures of the statues of the saints. And so this is like a very decorational column on the left side. It's very much like an arc overall. Yeah, so almost using like a blind contour approach to draw all of these details. Very organic lines that I see on here. Yeah, so it's a really beautiful sculpture, and if we want to really take our time to do this in full detail, we could spend the whole day drawing this single item in here. So for the purpose of this sketch, I just want to capture like a good impression of the interior and not try to get caught up with these details. Yeah, so the cathedral is a really a unique kind of architecture, very different from the common buildings that we see in the everyday. And but the way that I simplify this is still very similar to the way that I draw other kind of architectures. So as I mentioned before, I first divided this interior into about 4 different large spaces. Number one is the dome on the very top, and number two is the corridor or the chamber on the left. Number three is the atrium, which is the area in the middle, and number four is the chamber on the right. So 4 large spaces. In between these spaces, there are columns and a lot of like simple shapes. Yeah, and these columns are in thin prism shapes, and just adding a little accentuation in between with a little thicker ink lines, and just drawing this little arc here, down here, leading into the chamber, and another column connected with the arc. Keep building up the space of the corridor over here. It has a sense of depth. And another column. In between the column, there is a mural of Jesus. So the rhythm of the evening prayers is very soothing, and it really helps me to keep going with this sketch. Yeah, adding a little accentuation in between these columns so they look kind of separated. And yeah, adding these 3 dimensions. So these are pretty much like pieces of prisms. And the spiral shapes on top of these columns and these arc areas. Yeah, so I am pretty much like summarizing what I see and not, copying the exact details with super hard concentration. So if I concentrate way too much on the exact details, it's actually very, very tiring. So right now I'm just trying to relax and just draw as much details as I can. I know I won't be able to draw every single detail in here. Yeah, so right now just drawing these very much like the ones on the left, following the 3-dimensional curve of the dome. Yeah, and just filling in these details very, very quickly. And moving on to this large shape of another angel figure. Okay, so now it's time to paint watercolors. So there are 2 colors that I see, that really stand out the most is this golden yellow tone and also a bit of green. So I'm starting with this warm color first because when painting watercolors, it's always better to start with a warm color first. Yeah, so this is like a mix of cadmium yellow and orange, diluted a little bit. Sometimes I'm mixing in more or less cadmium yellow or orange because different areas, the glow intensity is slightly different. So this one might contain a little bit more cadmium yellow and also a little bit of lemon yellow. So another tip for painting pretty much like anything from still life to this complicated interior is to paint the same colors that you see at the same time, so you don't have to switch back and forth again. So as you can see, I just painted all of those golden yellow colors all around the whole interior first, and then moving on to the orange tones, which is around the inner wall of the atrium here in the middle. And now I'm starting to add this green tone. So this is very much like a viridian green mixed with a little bit of yellow ochre and diluted a lot with water. It's not a very intense green, just very lightly around here, around the rim of these little murals, around the arc and the dome area. And so far, and for the rest of the painting process, I'm keeping the color scheme very, very simple. And so this cathedral is actually, it's beautiful, but it's not too fancy with all of the colors of the rainbow. So the yellow and orange and the greens are the main colors, and that's it. And here I'm just adding a little bit more orange tone around this arc area. And same for the dome. Yeah, so most of the essence of this cathedral interior is already captured by the lines and shapes. And the color scheme could be very simple. And now I'm just adding a bit of contrast now with a little bit of orange brown around this area where they don't have a lot of lighting in that area. And keep adding on this green tone very lightly. And for here, there's more of like a lemon yellow with medium yellow there, but there's more lighting in the corridor there on the left. And just adding a little darker tone of green by mixing purple into the green. So this area of columns is very dark because there's like no lighting in that area. And adding some oranges around these figures on the murals. Now adding this warm orange brown for the first layer of the sculpture and adding a bit of contrast with raw umber in between the warm colors so it sort of glows. And some green tones around the bottom of these columns. And adding some darker green tones because it does need some contrast. The cathedral here, just like most cathedrals and churches, is very, very bright, but in certain areas, especially around the bottoms and also the gaps in between, we do have some shaded areas with less lighting. So it's really all about playing around with a balance of warm yellows and the cold greens and the shade of greens. Yeah, adding a bit of green. It's like a play of the yellows and greens and some oranges and browns as well. It's a nice balance. So if a painting is only containing warm colors, it doesn't look interesting. The warmth and the glow needs to be supported by the shade to make the glow even stronger and powerful. And that's one of the qualities of a powerful painting, that it should contain a nice ratio of warm and cool colors, or bright and its contrasting colors. And now just adding some a little bit blue right now on top of the greens to create the contrast. And also it helps with the three dimension and it adds kind of flow to these surfaces. None of these surfaces are flat, they're always kind of like slanting in a very smooth way, like inverted slopes for these domes. And these are actually columns. Those columns are actually bars of prisms. Yeah, and adding some final bit of contrast. The dark brown is also a nice contrasting color with the yellows and oranges. That's it. So here is the look of my finished sketch. So it took me exactly 1 hour on location to draw and paint watercolors. So thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. So I try to update this channel 2 to 3 times a week. Have a great day, everyone. I will see you again very soon next time.